President Trump's social media platforms Truth Social is reportedly planning to make a Bitcoin exchange trade available to everyday investors. As per reports, New York Stock Exchange ETF trading arm has filed an application to list a Bitcoin fund linked to Truth Social. The move is a reaffirmation of Trump's crypto push. Earlier, I spoke to Ananya Kumar, Deputy Director at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C., about Trump's crypto policies and their impact on the global cryptocurrency framework.
I think starting at the beginning of this administration around Davos, Donald Trump has made it quite clear that crypto is a legislative priority of the U.S. government. He's laid out a strategy through an executive order that came out in late January. There's three prongs to it. One part of it talks about banning a retail central bank digital currency. The other part of it talks about creating an innovative landscape for just broader crypto assets and financial innovation in the U.S. And the last part of it talks about creating legislation around stablecoin in the U.S. Now, why is stablecoin legislation important? Because about 98% of them are pegged to the dollar, so the dollar is really central to how they define their value, and the Trump administration has been moving quite fast on creating a legislative parameter around it.
Right. Now, there is a Bitcoin strategic reserve that Donald Trump has also formed. What are the concerns around that?
Sure. So the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, as it was called earlier in the year, now it's called the Digital Asset Strategic Reserve because it not only consists of Bitcoin, but consists of other digital assets like Ethereum, like Solana, and others. I'd say the biggest sort of concern emanating out of this is that its value could fluctuate at any time. So unlike a regular strategic reserve, which, for example, might be a petroleum strategic reserve, you could sell it off at a certain point and sort of manage your asset a little bit better. It's a little bit unclear how exactly you're going to do that with the digital asset strategic reserve, especially because digital assets move as markets move. The other bit of concern, again, is encouraging other people, especially vulnerable populations, to hold Bitcoin and other kinds of digital assets which might not hold their value. So sort of encouraging this atmosphere of holding digital assets while not having a clear regulation or enforcement around them could be risky, sort of in a financial sense.
How is there a conflict of interest between what Donald Trump is trying to do with Bitcoin as a strategic reserve and at the same time promoting his own cryptocurrency?
Right, there's been a lot of talk in Washington about the politicization of digital assets, which is what you're referring to. Obviously, elected officials should not be allowed to issue their own digital currencies, which is what we've seen happen from the White House. There's been a lot of backlash to that coming from Congress more recently, and they're trying to create provisions to prevent that from happening. That's how I've seen the conflict of interest evolve.
Right. How is this going to shape U.S. approach to cryptocurrencies? Because India was not looking at banning it, but the laws that we have in India, the taxation is absolutely prohibitive to the extent that you're not going to gain anything by investing in cryptocurrencies.
Right, that's true. And at the same time, India is ranked one of the highest countries when it comes to the adoption of cryptocurrencies. That has a lot to do with the younger population and people being interested in holding these assets. What we found in our research is that banning cryptocurrencies doesn't really stop people from wanting to hold them. What you need to create is a regulatory perimeter around them so that it's safe to hold those assets, so that people are ensured that they don't have to run to safety when those assets don't give them the value that they want it to give. So we found bans to not work in the long term.
Right. And also give us a sense of how Donald Trump, what are some of the other steps that Donald Trump could take in the next few months as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned, legal fencing them, or just boosting their availability and access in the market?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that's going to come out of this administration and this Congress is going to be a legislative framework for stablecoins. It's under work in Congress, both houses of the Congress right now. So that's going to be the first thing that comes out. The second part of this is going to look at a market structure bill. So finally defining, is crypto a commodity? Is it a security? At what point does it bleed into one or the other? Both bills are really important for creating a regulatory perimeter, and I think that's what the administration's focus is going to be on, and it's certainly what Congress's focus is on.
Considering that cryptocurrencies have been involved in blackmailing, and they've been traced to Russia, they've been traced to China as well when it comes to blackmailing and threat, Are there a lot of concerns with what the US administration is doing at this stage and whether there are enough safeguards in the system?
That's true. I mean, illicit finance, as you're talking about, and sanctions evasion is a big concern when it comes to cryptocurrencies. It's a big concern when it comes to sort of regular finance as well. I think without adequate AML CFT protections in legislation and then an adequate framework for how to implement them and enforce them, you're going to lose out on any sort of safety of your larger system, especially as crypto gets connected to regular finance more and more. You really need a higher standard for AML CFT.